Welcome to part 2 of this 5-part wood-fired oven masterclass series where I sit down in the United Kingdom and talk to David Jones from the Manna from Devon Cooking School. If you haven't listened to the first episode in this series, I suggest you start with that one first. Manna from Devon specialise in teaching wood-fired oven cooking techniques to folks from all around the world. In part 2 of this masterclass series, we pick up where we left off last episode and discuss cooking pizza using Tuscan grills, David's favourite cooking pans, and how to roast the perfect chicken, including that elusive crispy chicken skin. We also talk about the challenges of cooking trickier foods like porchetta, baking the perfect bread rolls, and David's unique techniques for smoking foods in the wood-fired oven. Genius, actually. Lots coming up in this episode. You can find more about this wonderful wood-fired oven cooking school by checking out their website, mannafromdevon.com. I'll leave a bunch of links to their website, books, and online courses in the show notes. If you would like to become a supporter of the Wood-Fired Oven podcast, please consider it. Head over to woodfiredoven.cooking/support, where I have left a few options for you to consider. Okay, sit back, relax, and join me as we continue this incredible 5-part wood-fired oven masterclass series with David Jones.
Hi, this is Ben.
This is Adrian.
This is Clive.
This is David Jones from the Manna from Devon Cooking School, and you are listening to the Wood-Fired Oven podcast with Mark Goston.
The United Kingdom is a gorgeous place. Lush green rolling hills, gorgeous meandering rivers, and stunning wild coastlines. About 4.5 hours southwest of London lies Kingswear in South Devon, a particularly stunning area, so much so in fact that it holds national status in the UK as a designated area of outstanding natural beauty, and I can see why. I've travelled here from Brisbane, Australia to visit today's very special guests. David and Holly Jones own and operate the well-known Manna from Devon Cooking School, located near the beautiful River Dart. They have been teaching folks from all around the world wood-fired oven cooking techniques for over 15 years in this amazing place. So I am very excited to chat with David today. They are also authors of 3 gorgeous wood-fired oven cookbooks, which I discussed back in Season 2, Episode 3 of the show. It's very easy to get your oven very hot, and I think most of us would probably go through a phase when we have our oven finished and we are so excited, we've done the curing fires, and we're so excited to cook and we throw so much wood in it and it gets so hot. And the first few dishes that come out are pretty average. I mean, my kids are pretty honest with my cooking and they'll tell me. But is that something that you see in your students, that some of those common struggles or challenges that they have would be around controlling heat?
Totally. And you're absolutely right. Everybody starts off, not everybody, I'm sure, but people tend to start off with, it must be easy to use one of these wood-fired ovens. I just make a whacking great fire inside it and I put some food in and hopefully it'll come out all right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it does come out all right, but quite often we've had every tale of, chicken black on the outside and raw on the inside.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, pizza loves extremely hot ovens. For 90 seconds, bam, it's done. But it's probably, I don't know, what other foods would want to be cooked at those sort of temperatures? Probably not much.
No, exactly. Exactly. And we want people to understand that there is subtlety and control involved in wood-fired cooking, which then allows you to cook things without that element of hope. So you're not sticking it in there and crossing your fingers. You're sticking it in there and you are pretty much certain that it's going to come out exactly as you planned. And but the learning to control is not straightforward, because in a refractory oven, in a classic, traditional masonry oven, some of that heat is invisible. Yeah. It is stored in the oven itself.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's wonderful.
It's absolutely the beauty of it, but it's also not at all intuitive. And, even this weekend past, I had people who were, I think it's safe to say, incredulous that we cooked all day with an oven that didn't have a fire in it.
Is that right? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're right, it is invisible, isn't it? I mean, for my oven at home, I was telling you before we came on air that I can, if I light up my oven at home and put a good fire in it on a Friday night, do some pizza, I'm cooking in it with no charcoal, no ash, no wood the next day and the day after that, simply because of that heat retention properties, that energy that's stored in the brickwork. I think that's magic. It's lovely to have a fire in your oven. It's very romantic, and it's part of the whole ambience for me. I just love sitting there outside on my outdoor deck. I don't have a big encased place like this, but with a glass of wine, looking into that mouth with that fire going, I think it's pretty magical. It's pretty special, and then getting to cook in it as well. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it is. But these ovens have always been about, in a practical sense, they've been about efficiency. You know, when Neanderthal, Paleolithic, so Paleolithic remains of these ovens have been found in parts of Europe. So 9,000 years old.
Amazing, isn't it? Isn't it?
They weren't sitting in front of their oven with a glass of wine,
They weren't,
pondering
were they?
the
No.
romance of fire.
No, they weren't. But I do.
And that's fair
Come on, I
enough.
bet you sit here with a glass of wine sometimes looking inside your oven.
Oh, I do.
Or a beautiful beer.
I definitely do. But they were always a practical
They were. It's a working
way
tool,
of-
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as such, you wanted to get everything out of it, every bit of energy you put into it, you wanted to get back out, and you wanted to use it as efficiently as possible to cook for the days ahead. And so you wanted lots of things to come out of that oven, so that you could then get on and do other more useful things or different things with your time, which was sparse.
Do you find that your students who come here stay connected with you? I think you've got a fabulous Facebook group, which I think does Holly manage your Facebook group. Do you find that your students like to stay connected with you after they've come to your courses?
Yeah, so we've had we do have a great Facebook group which has several thousand
I think more like
members.
8 or 9,000.
Okay.
Yeah, when I joined, it was about that.
More recently than me. Yeah, and that's people sharing ideas and sharing their inspiration, and we try and keep that to cooking and cooking ideas. And you do see the same questions coming up over and again.
Yep.
As new people coming
That's right.
to the wood-fired oven world, and on that forum, there's lots of people who will chip in and give plenty of advice, including ourselves. So it takes on a life of its own.
It does. It's self-sustaining. Once you've got enough people, it's self-sustaining, isn't it? You don't have to sit there every day responding to all these wonderful questions. But
Exactly. But that's great. And we've had lots of people who've come back to the school several times, sometimes to do the same class.
That's great.
Or come back with friends and do the same class.
That's neat.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, brilliant.
So your students, do you find that they come from all levels of experience? Have you got some? Do you find that some of your students are very experienced with cooking in these ovens?
I'd say not very experienced, because once you become very experienced, then you've got the confidence, you've got the control, you can do anything with your oven. But we certainly have people who've had ovens for a long time and have never got beyond a certain level. So they've cooked pizzas but not tried anything else, or tried a little bit but been a little bit hesitant about it, and we try and send them away much more confident and much more inspired to do that. I'd say that most of the people coming on our classes are certainly brand new to wood-fired cooking. They haven't done very much at all. So we can really sort of supercharge their first efforts in wood-fired cooking. Because, as we mentioned earlier, initially you stand in front of the oven with no idea about where the heat is, how long it's going to last in the oven. All that idea of stored heat doesn't make any sense at all. And we can really help them over that first hurdle of understanding what it's all about, really. And then we get people who thinking of using the ovens professionally. So they want some speedy introduction to get them understanding the oven and how they can use it for a new pizza business or something like that.
Is there a culture in the UK of wood-fired ovens in trucks, pulling up for events or for weddings? Is there a lot of that going on in the UK? And there certainly is in our part of the world, in Australia. There's lots and lots of pizza trucks.
Huge amounts.
There are some good ones and there are some fabulous ones. Is that the same here?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that was something that didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago, the idea of putting a wood-fired oven in the back of a truck or
It's a little
trailer.
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And now they are everywhere.
Yeah.
And we've had lots of people coming to us who are getting into that world. Some of whom have never used a wood-fired oven before, never made a pizza, never thrown a pizza before, but they've decided that
to launch a business with a truck.
That's
a big leap, isn't it?
Perfectly safe career in
That's right.
banking.
It's just got boring. Isn't it?
And so they're going to try something else. Yeah, and we know we keep in touch, or keep an idea of what's happening with some of those businesses, and some of them are thriving. And I think some others maybe didn't realise that there's quite a lot of work involved.
Oh, yeah.
It's an early start, and a lot of all the work is in the preparation. In that sort of couple of hours where you're selling lots of pizzas quickly, that's 10% of the effort that goes into all of that.
And there are pizzas, aren't there?
There are.
I mean, we've all had some pretty poor pizzas.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm one of your students, imagine that, and I've turned up on day one at, what time do you start your courses?
10 o'clock.
Oh, gosh, okay. Oh, that's not too bad, actually. So I've turned up at 10 o'clock. Give me a run-through about what your courses entail. What would I expect to do, to see, to be taught on one of your courses?
Okay, so... well, it'll be a relatively small group, so 10 people, maybe 8 or 10 people. So a fairly small group, and there's going to be there's going to be a cup of coffee, and then there's going to be...
It's good coffee too. It's very nice. Thank you, Holly.
Then there's going to be some chat from me about kind of the ins and outs of a wood-fired oven, the basic architecture, how it works. And for some people, that in itself is revelatory.
Oh, yeah.
They never even really thought about that, and why it's the shape it is, and why the flue is on the front, and why this, that, and the other. And we chat about what wood we use, and how we fire the oven initially, and the different ways in which the oven can be used. And I also, at that point, I chat to everybody about their own oven, so I've got an understanding of their situation, so I can talk specifically about that, what oven they've got, what brand, how they've been using it so far. And then we get into some cooking. We get everybody hands-on with some dough, making some dough. We do a little bit of cooking. Usually start with some fish and some... roast some scallops.
Goodness, do you?
And things. And already now people have in that first hour, quite often we have people say, it's already been worth my time coming here, because in that first hour of me chatting, I've learned
heaps. That's great.
5 different things.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And then we start cooking, and the first thing we cook is not a pizza. It's a fish dish, and maybe a little bit of some pakoras or something, and they're like...
What's that?
So some little pakoras, Indian chickpea fritters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And already people are like, I thought it was all about pizza.
No.
Something like that.
No.
And we're like, definitely you should be cooking fish in your wood-fired oven, because it's the most fantastic environment for cooking
Is
fish.
it? Okay, so we need to stop here and just talk about fish in that case, because I'm not a seafood guy, right? So seafood is not really my thing. And so I haven't cooked fish. My wife, who's sitting a couple of feet away, she loves fish, and I've done no fish for it in my wood-fired oven. So I'm an absolute new. It's pretty disgraceful. But
terrible.
Why is a wood-fired oven so good for fish? And what would you tell? How would you inspire me to cook fish in it for my wife?
So a wood-fired oven is good for fish because, one, we can get it much, much hotter than our regular oven.
Okay.
So if I want to roast a piece of fish, I can roast it at 300, 350 degrees centigrade.
Fish likes that, doesn't it?
And fish loves that.
Does it?
As long as it's not, I'm not trying to cook a whole fish, because it's not very dense. It will cook really quickly, but it will retain all of its moisture.
Okay.
And you just see it sort of puff up and become light and open. Yeah.
So you obviously love your seafood.
Yeah. Yeah. I can crisp up skin at high temperature. I can add a little bit of smokiness from the oven.
Right.
I can add a bit of char and texture.
Well, sounding pretty good.
On the outside.
Goodness, can you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I can cook in seconds.
Okay.
A piece of fish, or minutes, and some people will definitely appreciate this. All of the smell goes straight up the flue.
Does it?
And it doesn't linger around the house for several days.
Okay.
Yeah. So beautiful texture, beautiful flavour.
Okay. How would you cook scallops in a wood-fired oven?
So we tend to just do a very simple in the shell. So keep the scallop in the half shell with butter and garlic and parsley and a little bit of breadcrumbs and roast it at a high temperature.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
Is it really?
Just
gorgeous. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't taste too fishy.
Well, scallop is just a big mussel, and on its own, it doesn't have a deep, intense flavour at all.
Okay.
And with lots of
garlic
butter.
It hides what's there anyway. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's nothing offensive about a scallop.
Okay. No. And do scallops come from this part of the world down here?
Oh,
this is a big seafood area, isn't it, for the UK?
It is, yeah. And we've got, just out of here and turn right and you're out into the western approaches, so that's the Atlantic coming into the British Channel, into the English Channel. Lots of fish there, and around the coast here, lots of crab, lots of scallops, some lobsters, some crayfish.
Okay.
Yeah, and an amazing market over the hill, which we can't go to as members of the public. You've got to be a kind of dealer or a broker to go there. But we get that fish, 5 minutes after they left the market, we can get hold of it.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so back to our cooking course. First thing folks are going to be doing is some seafood, that's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah.
All right, so you've done your seafood, you've done some flatbreads, I think you mentioned. What other things during this day will I come away with if I spend my hard-earned cash coming to see you?
Well, then we're going to do a little bit of a pizza session.
So you do pizza?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I mean, if you're coming on a wood-fired oven class as a newbie to wood-fired cooking,
you got to do some pizza, right?
You've got to do some pizza.
Yeah.
And as I say to everybody, don't call it a pizza oven.
No.
Because that is doing the oven a disservice.
100% with you there. In fact, my oven at home has probably only seen pizza maybe 3 times. I love doing everything else, but I love pizza. Yeah. I just love pizza. I love flatbread. I love pizza. But it is so much more than a pizza oven. I agree entirely with you.
Yeah. But at the same time, it will cook the best pizza you've ever had.
Correct. It will, won't it?
So let's make some pizza.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. Okay, good.
And everybody, if they're reasonably new with their oven, they've generally tried pizza and they've had some trouble with their pizza.
What would be some of the common troubles at those?
So they've stuck it to the peel.
Yeah, okay.
100%.
What, getting it in the oven, right? Yeah.
Getting it in the oven.
Yeah.
And there's lots of tips around that very quickly get people over that initial hurdle. So just, having one clean cold peel to put the pizza in the oven with and another one to do everything else so the peel doesn't get hot and dirty is one top tip.
So using semolina to help roll it off?
Using a bit of flour and semolina when you're shaping the pizza, but not too much on the peel itself, so you don't end up with loose semolina burning on the floor of the oven. And so making sure that you've kind of created a non-stick surface on the pizza itself. And then using a turning peel for everything else for moving the pizza around in the oven, and also, of course, just being careful with your not being too sloppy with your topping and throwing sauce and oil and
too much on your toppings, because when you try to spin it, it's just going to disintegrate on the floor of my oven. Yeah.
And we get everybody.
Less is more, isn't it? Less is more with pizza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we get people stretching, hand stretching a pizza and using a dough that we've made, but that we also made with them earlier in the session. So getting them a bit more confident with handling dough, and also about how to set up your oven to cook pizza, because even that is not obvious.
Okay.
If you want to cook pizza super fast, 90 seconds, that's one way of setting up your oven. If you want to cook pizza crispy, chewy, with lots of toppings, and really that needs a little bit longer to cook, you're going to set up your oven a little bit different and have it slightly cooler.
Okay, so describe those differences then. That's interesting. So describe how you'd set up the oven given the different types of pizza like that.
So Neapolitan pizza with that puff crust and thin base and very sparsely topped.
Gorgeous. Oh.
Cooked in 90 seconds. But with still lots of moisture in the dough, so it's soft, it's not crisp. And for that oven, the floor is going to be at 375 degrees, and we're going to have a really bright fire burning, so the oven looks yellow. And if I try and stick my hand anywhere near the oven, it's going to be
fried. Yeah.
Well,
pretty hot.
I can just about get my hand in the oven, but not really keep it there. And then that's the oven ready. Galloping through fuel at this point. It is really greedy. It's like driving your car at 120.
Yep.
We're at top whack, and it's sucking the fuel. But it's cooking us a fantastic pizza.
And it looks great. Cooking
looks great.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
Also, it looks great, but also, of course, if you get distracted for 20 seconds, you've gone from perfect to
bad,
on fire.
Very, very bad.
Yeah.
It happens quick. It's hot.
So you've got to be on that. And then if you want a pizza which is cooked a little more gently, because you want more toppings on it. If you want to cook mushrooms and ham and pepperoni and cheese and pile all that on your pizza a little bit, or you like your pizza a little crisper, a little chewier, you need to give the dough more time to dehydrate in the oven. Right. You can't do that in a super hot oven because in the process of dehydrating, you'll just burn it.
Yeah, right.
So then you want your floor at 325 degrees. You want a little fire burning so your oven looks orange. You want to be able to put your hand in the oven and kind of hold it there for a second or so before you think that's enough.
Right.
And then your pizza's going to take 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
And it's a completely different
texture. So the crust is quite different. Okay.
Crisp around the edges.
I just learned something. Fabulous.
The base is chewy.
Yeah, nice. Sounds good.
And it will support all of those toppings that you've gone to town with. So if Neapolitan pizza should be a kind of a snack, nice and light, not really filling you up. Whereas if you want something which is more of a substantial meal, then pile on those toppings a little more and cook it for a little bit longer.
And the crust, the base is thicker, is it? In that sort of style of pizza? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the centre of the base is thicker, but typically you don't have that big puffy crust. Yeah.
Do you have a preference? What do you like?
Oh, I like the one with a bit more topping on it, probably.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And then you can also get a little more creative, with your toppings. And that's the other thing which we like to talk about is different toppings and what you can use and how you can get creative. And I'm very much of the opinion that whatever you want to put on a pizza is okay with me. I don't have any gatekeeping rules about this.
Okay.
And lots of people do.
Really?
Oh
gosh.
Well, yeah. Okay. As you know, all you have to do is mention
pineapple. Pineapple, I know.
Half the world is gone mad. And
we grew up with pineapple on our pizza in New Zealand. It's great. Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah, and I'm all I care about is that people are able to cook the pizza that they want to eat and enjoy. And if they want to get creative and go to town with hosing duck and, all sorts of crazy things, good for them.
Oh, yeah.
And if they want to use pineapple, good for them.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like it too sweet, but if you've got a fresh pineapple and grilled that over some embers with a little sprinkle of chili on it, and then
chili.
chop that up finely and put that on a pizza with some pulled ham or pulled pork.
Oh, yeah.
Now we're talking. Now we've got something which is a bit balanced and not overly sweet. I think that's fantastic.
What about dessert pizzas? Do you do these?
Yes, yeah. And again, if you try and cook a dessert pizza at Neapolitan pizza temperatures, you're going to have burnt sugar, which is vile. Yeah. So you've got to set your oven up differently. And that's the understanding we're trying to give to people is There's no one setting which is right for every pizza.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. If you want your pizza nice and thick, more kind of, let's say, Sicilian, Chicago, Detroit style.
Yep.
That's a different oven again. And
It gets very technical, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. So you come in with there must be one right way to do it.
Fascinating.
There's a right way to do the pizza that you're trying to cook right now, and they're different, and you need to understand how to set your oven and control the temperature a little bit differently.
Okay, so we're back on your course. We've made pizza. This is dish number 3, I guess, is it? Number 4. What happens next?
Then we do some roasting.
I'd be pretty full by now, though.
We do issue a warning at the start of the day that it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And we've always got pizza boxes, so if people want to take a pizza away with them and have it later, not eat it there and then, that's all fine with us.
Yeah.
But we want to show people how to use the oven to roast and to start exploring the benefit of a refractory oven.
Yep.
So we're roasting a chicken and some potatoes or a piece of beef, and some roast peppers. Always some vegetable options,
nice.
included in our classes, because it shouldn't all be about big hunks of meat. Although we do rather like a big hunk of meat.
Yeah.
So all of that going on, and in one oven, and maybe in the other oven, we're grilling a steak, cooking some pita breads.
Fabulous.
Roasting some vegetables over embers. Really love using a Tuscan grill.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
cook.
I love my Tuscan grill.
To cook over embers and
yeah.
get that fat dripping down, adding smoke and flavour to the food is fantastic.
How do you cook your steaks? I like cooking mine over the Tuscan grill, actually, but there are all sorts of ways you can cook steak in these things. How do you enjoy cooking steak in here?
So it depends on the steak. If I've got something which has got some nice fat and marbling, that's probably going on the Tuscan grill. So we get all of those
Dripping
lovely
down and
drippings and great crust, and a bit of char.
Oh, it's good, isn't it? Oh, yeah.
Fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But if I want to cook something that doesn't have that, so I love cooking a bit of skirt steak, bavette, onglet. I don't know what you call it in.
No idea.
In down south.
Damn it, it's a long way down south.
But that bit of belly steak, which has got fairly tough fibres, long. Tough fibres and no fat in it.
Right.
If you cook that on the Tuscan grill, it's going to come out like a piece of leather, probably.
It gets very tough.
Yeah.
Tightens up.
So that goes in a pan with oil and then butter and is basted and
Yum. Sounds
to
good.
keep it nice and moist, but still cooked really quickly so it doesn't have time to toughen up.
So you talked about pans here on the wall behind me here, and we're going to get into this shortly as we do a tour of your kitchen, but you like to cook your steaks in a cast iron pan?
Probably in a cast iron pan for steaks, but up there we've got a mix of cast iron and steel. I've got some nice heavy steel, and I love using that because it heats up quicker. I mean, if you put a cast iron pan in the oven,
Takes a while.
You've got to let it heat up properly, otherwise it's not going to do its job properly. Whereas with steel, it heats up very quickly.
Yeah, okay.
It's got to be, if you're cooking at pretty high temperatures, you want some pretty high grade thick steel, otherwise it's going to buckle. But it is a lot easier to move around than a heavy old cast iron pan.
Is it easy to clean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they build up a nice, same as cast iron, builds up a nice non-stick patina after a while. Yeah. So we don't go to town with the scrubbing, with the scouring on them. I've got some beautiful thick French crepe pans.
Crepe pans?
Some beautiful French crepe pans.
Are they the ones with the huge long handles on them?
No, just short handles in this case, but they're really heavy spun steel, and they're just beautiful. And Holly found them in a junk shop.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, score.
Fantastic.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh.
And then I've got old roasting tins and various bits, lots of stuff that is black, so that if I'm cooking with fire burning in the oven and they discolour, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, sure.
But then for lower temperatures, if we're braising and slow cooking, anything. So I've got cast iron enamelled pots over there with nice cream and green. I've got some ceramic and some terracotta.
Some Kizuelas. Do you use
fine.
Kizuelas? That sort of Spanish style of cooking?
Oh,
those
yeah,
pots?
yeah.
I love my cassouelas. Use them a lot.
Yeah.
They're great.
So a real range of different things that we've collected over the years.
Just want to take a quick moment during this episode and express my gratitude to all those wonderful folks who have reached out and financially supported the show. It only takes a few small coins, the equivalent of shouting me a coffee or lunch, to make a big difference to the future viability of the show. If you would like to become a supporter of the Wood Fired Oven podcast, please head over to woodfiredoven.cooking/support, where there are a few options you can choose from. I've left links in the show notes. Special shout out this week to Manny and Clive for supporting the show recently. I'm very grateful to you for your generous support. Thanks to all my supporters. You are all legends to me. Okay, let's get back to the show. If I was a newbie to my oven, I love chicken. You talked about roast chicken before.
Yeah.
Talk me through how to cook the perfect roast chicken, whole chicken in your wood-fired oven. How would I set it up?
So, it's not so different to your regular oven. You want to sit your oven at kind of 200 or 220 degrees. And, I mean, there is no right way. You can cook a chicken with the temperature coming up. You can cook a chicken with a little bit of fire burning in the oven. You can cook a chicken with no fire in the oven. You can cook a chicken with a bed of embers. You can cook a chicken on a rotisserie in the oven with a fire burning. So there's no one perfect way. There's lots of different ways. The thing is to be confident in your temperature that it's going to hold for long enough. So, let's say your chicken's going to take 50 minutes or an hour to cook. You want your temperature to hold for that time. If you're cooking that chicken in a refractory oven, that's pretty straightforward because any refractory oven worth its salt will hold temperature nicely.
Particularly for over an hour. Easy.
Yeah. If you're cooking that in a steel oven, then you're going to keep a little fire burning to keep that temperature at just right. And that's about managing that fire with little pieces of wood just to keep a little flame. Because if you go with lots of wood, suddenly the temperature spikes, and that's when you've blackened the outside of your chicken.
And raw inside.
Totally uncooked.
It's not good. What's the secret to crispy skin in a wood-fired oven on that chicken?
Just letting it breathe, really.
Okay.
So sitting it up out of the pan to let air around it and not having any moisture.
Because we're drying the skin out, aren't we, when we're trying to get it crispy?
Yeah. So I like a pot roast chicken. You pop it in the pot, you stick the lid on, vegetables in there and some wine and all of that. And it kind of pot roasts and braises the chicken. But no, you won't get a crispy skin because it's surrounded by humidity. But if you sit that chicken up on a rack in your roasting tin, so the air can circulate around it, you'll get a lovely crispy skin on there. Okay. Yeah. And also thinking about what else you've got going on in the oven at the same time. So if you're roasting that in the oven, but alongside it you've got a pan of something bubbling away with lots of liquid that is going to make the oven humid, then it'll make it more difficult to crisp your skin. Okay. The thing everybody wants to do is to cook a piece of loin of pork or belly pork and get the crackling spot on. And that if you sit it in the right temperature with a bit of salt on the skin, it'll crackle beautifully because the oven can be such a dry environment.
Oh yeah.
But if you put it in there and you've got it in a pan with some onions and some wine and some everything else, which is braising the meat nicely, but it's not letting your skin crackle up. So sometimes you've got to scratch your head and think.
And I think experimenting.
How's it all going to work together?
Absolutely. And I've had some great success recently with pork belly and crackling, and I think I've nailed it now. But a lot of that is in the preparation, a day or two, maybe 2 or 3 days prior to preparing the pork, preparing the skin. But pork and crackling in a wood-fired oven is amazing when it is nailed. I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
Yeah,
and I did a job recently where I was presented with. It was sort of I was supposed to be teaching. I'm not sure it didn't turn into me feeding the family more than anything else. But I was presented with a sort of beautiful 4-kilo porchetta.
Oh, geez.
So loin of pork wrapped around fennel and garlic and herbs and onions.
How good is that?
And all of that. And, it was like, oh, can we get it all nice and have all the crackling lovely? Now, loin of pork, of course, is notorious for not having any marbling, no internal fat, so it dries out really quickly.
Right.
And so this was kind of a technical challenge because it's a big piece.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
So then there was a bit of head scratching, and then we said, well, we're going to start it off at one temperature, then drop it down, lift it up in the pan, start it off at one temperature, then drop it down with liquid. So we get the crackling first, then we braise the meat.
Sure. Yeah.
And
it worked out all right?
Worked absolutely fine.
Did it? Oh,
yeah.
Gosh. Oh, gee.
And I like those technical challenges. And this is the joy of wood-fired cooking for me is that it is such a sensory activity. It doesn't have all the gizmos that are going to do the work for you.
Yeah.
You've got to be in touch with the food and the oven and the fire and understand intimately what's going to happen with the heat. And the more you do that, the more you get confident and able to play with these sort of slightly more technically demanding things. And when those things come out of the oven exactly as you had planned, then you can consider yourself to be, somewhat of a master of your oven. Until that point, there's going to be some mistakes along the way, and you're going to learn from those, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
And, if you've got it right and you've understood everything and you've put it in the oven confidently and taken it out as you'd hoped, then you can congratulate yourself on getting all of those things right and not just turning a knob and having it doing it for you.
Yeah, with a timer and it bings
up to that point. Anything up to that point, you can always blame the oven.
Yes, you can.
God, it's a useless bit of kit.
It is.
It's only
I need something more expensive. Yeah,
only done all the cooking ever for 9,000 years.
Yeah, that's right. When you're not cooking or demonstrating in your classes, do you come out on a Saturday night and cooking these things just for yourself?
Certainly, if we're entertaining.
What about just the two of you?
If it's just the two of us,
do you like to have a break from the wood-fired oven?
Then we do use the wood-fired oven. So if we're cooking a steak for ourselves or some fish, we'll use the wood-fired ovens because there's things happening there that you just can't get to happen inside, no matter how hard you try. So we'll use it for that, But if we're rustling up pasta sauce on a Tuesday night, then we're not using them using them every day.
Use your electric stove. Yeah. So I can see that coming to one of your classes, I'm going to be filled with lots of tips and ideas and tricks. And
we didn't finish that class, but
is there more?
There's more.
Oh, what's next?
Because then, we've got to cook some bread and we've got to do something sweet.
Oh, good. Okay.
Really like to send people away understanding that you can cook sweet things in these ovens. Yeah. It's not all about the savoury stuff. Okay. Not everything is going to come out touched by smoke and feeling all smoky and savoury. Oh. So we usually do something like a tart tatin or a crumble or something.
Oh, lovely. Yep.
Something like that.
Yeah, nice.
And we like to do some bread. Always like to get people started on a bit of bread.
Yeah, what sort of bread do you do?
So we just do some little baguettes, some French sticks in the oven.
I've seen your YouTube video punching out some little baguettes, little rolls.
Yeah.
In fact, I watched it somewhere between Dubai and London.
Okay.
On the aeroplane. In fact, I watched a number of your YouTube videos.
The crunchy bread. Yeah.
You made that look ridiculously easy. And for the listeners out there, I'll leave links in the show notes. You've got to check out this because you really do make it look easy. It looks beautiful, actually. Yeah. Wow.
That's been a really popular video, that one.
Because
that idea
see why.
of crispy bread
I
coming out
needed to have some. Okay, so you're doing these little baguettes. Do you do focaccia breads on some of your classes?
So on our follow-on class from that.
Intermediate class, is it?
The slightly more intermediate class. Yeah.
We've nailed crunchy baguettes by now, and now it's focaccia.
Yeah. Then we're cooking baguettes, and loaves of bread, and doing some slow cooking, so things which will sit in the oven for several hours.
Oh, my favourite. Just my favourite. Yeah, I love it.
As well as doing some smoking.
Okay.
You know, any wood-fired oven can be set up to do some smoking.
Absolutely, and I've experimented a couple of times now.
Yeah.
The manufacturer of the oven that I have, Ben from the Firebrick Company in Australia, he did a great video of one way to set up an oven for smoking pork shoulders. Now that you've mentioned it, I love my smoking. I've got a couple of smokers as well. I just love the flavour of good smoke on food. Tell the listeners how you set up your wood-fired ovens for smoking, because I know in my circles it's pretty popular now to be experimenting with smoking in the ovens. So how do you do it? How would you instruct a class?
So we do two ways. One is to make a little smoker box and put that box inside the oven. So if you think of a Coleman smoker box that you put on the stovetop, we just create that out of a couple of roasting tins with the wood chips at one end and the food at the other, probably sitting up on a little rack or something.
The food on the rack inside these tins, right? Is that what you're describing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other tin goes over the top, and then we push that in so that the embers are near the wood chips are near some embers at the back of the oven, and they pretty quickly start to smoulder. But you've concentrated it inside this box inside the oven. So your food gets very concentrated.
So we're talking pans, are we? So let's just clarify this. So we're talking pans maybe 40 centimetres by maybe 30 centimetres.
Exactly.
Two of those.
Two roasting tins, one sit on top of another.
And you've got the food inside, maybe on a rack, and you've got embers at the back.
Wood chips.
Wood chips in the back.
Yeah.
I get it. Yep.
Yeah. And
that works pretty good.
Your whole oven can be reasonably hot, and we do things like scallops wrapped in bacon, asparagus, tomatoes, and they're only in the oven for 10 minutes. So it's very quick, but it gets a real concentrated blast of smoke.
Fantastic.
So you're really concentrating that flavour. And I think there's everybody kind of thinks everything in your wood-fired oven is going to come out tasting of smoke. But it doesn't. No. If you're cooking a pizza, the air circulation is so fast and the flame is so hot that there isn't any smoke.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't touch your food.
No.
If you're cooking with just retained heat, there's no flavour from what you heated up the oven with.
That's right.
But if you deliberately create smoke, then that is picked up by the food. Except that smoke will go up into the top of the oven, and then it will go up the flue. So if your food is at the bottom, it still won't get touched by the smoke. So the other thing we do is to build a kind of stack of things and then put a grill or a
Tuscan grill
at the top, so that the smoke can circulate around the food. And then if you're up in the top sort of third of the oven, your food is sitting in the top third of the oven, then it will get plenty of smoke up there. And that's how I would smoke some salmon or some mackerel fillets.
How long would you smoke salmon for?
25, 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. But you don't want the oven too hot. I mean, we can roast a piece of salmon in 6 or 7 minutes, but we don't want it to cook that quickly because we want it to have plenty of time to get some smoke. So you want to make sure that the oven is not too hot enough, or with a little bed of embers that will generate smoke when you stick some wood chips or some chunks on top, but not so hot that it will just cook the fish before it can pick up any flavour. Yeah.
Have you done any long-term smoking, like a big pork shoulder, some of these really big pieces of meat? Have you, like you're typically doing a smoker?
Yeah.
I've done this a couple of times now, and if it's done right, you can get a tremendously great result.
Yeah.
Have you tried those sorts of styles of cooking?
Yeah, a bit of that, and then I try and use some charcoal. So I have the oven just a little bit heated up.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of background heat. But then some charcoal, which is not contributing hugely to the heat of the oven, but is going to burn nice and slowly and then allow me to put some chunks of wood amongst that to smoke and smoulder. And then, give the meat some, again, lifting it up a little bit so it's sitting in the smoke.
Yep.
And then after, 3 or 4 hours where you think the meat's got some nice smokiness, wrap it all up, drop it down in the bottom of the oven, close the door, leave it for another
happy days
4 hours.
Yeah. It does a good job too.
Yeah,
I think it does really well. And my technique for smoking is very similar to that. I agree with you. I think lifting up the Tuscan grill and a couple of bricks. That's what I've done in my oven. And it sits in that smoke layer.
Yeah.
And it's just great. I've done it only on a falling oven. Maybe for me, it's probably it's on my day 3, and I typically do my big pork shoulders for about 10 hours. And maybe half of that was on smoke, and it's great. And look, I've been asked. I've got a wood-fired oven. Should I get a smoker to smoke foods as well? I've been smoking foods in my smokers a lot longer. I've been using my wood-fired ovens. The smokers are designed for it, right? They're really designed, and I think if you're really into your smoking, if you like that style of food, get a smoker. But the wood-fired oven does a fabulous job. If you don't want to buy something else, it really does.
And if you're an enthusiastic cook, whilst that smoking is going on in your smoker, everything else you can be doing in the wood-fired oven.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right. And you mentioned before you use oak in your oven, and that's a good smoking wood too. I've never used oak for smoking. Is that got a nice? Yeah, it's a bit hard for us to get down our part of the world.
Yeah, very traditional smoking wood in the UK. So lots of the fish smokeries that still exist and once used to be prolific, smoking all the oily fish around the coast, which are not so prolific anymore. But a lot of that would have been done on oak as a very traditional smoking wood. Right. And I mean everybody used to smoke with the wood that was locally available. Yeah. That's how it all. Yeah. That's how it happened. Yeah. So.
But you mentioned hickory too. You probably don't have much hickory around here, do you?
No.
I know where that's.
I just think hickory and poultry are delicious.
Oh yeah, hickory's great. So that's probably my favourite smoking wood, actually. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So now, of course, we can go online and we can get pretty much anything. Yeah. So if I want macadamia wood, I can macadamia wood.
Applewood. I like applewood. Applewood's nice.
Yeah. Another traditional. Another traditional UK wood.
Is it?
Yeah. From orchards and cherry.
Yeah. And cherry. Yeah. I've used cherry a few times. It's nice as well. Yeah. Bit harder to get for us, but that's quite traditional here, is it? Cherry.
Oh yeah. In the southeast in Kent, there are big cherry orchards. In the southwest, so not down here, but in the south.
On the other side. Yeah.
There traditionally lots of cherry orchards, so they use cherry.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the show at woodfiredoven.cooking/support. There are links in the show notes. This support helps to bring more great Wood-Fired Oven podcast episodes out to you. Remember, a few small coins makes a big difference to the show. Sign up online at woodfiredoven.cooking and receive our free Wood-Fired Oven resources pack. Follow me on Instagram at marks_woodfiredoven for recipes, tips and techniques to supercharge your fire cooking skills. Join our Wood-Fired Oven Chronicles Facebook group and meet some amazing fire cooking enthusiasts. Thanks for listening to this episode. Catch you next time. Stay safe, have fun, and go cook with fire.